me turn my mic on. So how you guys doing? Everybody looks like everybody's slowly making their way here. So I'm Ben. I am going to be your artist for today on Joy Pancakes. And I don't know if you noticed my title. The fall is here, and boy is it. So I'm going to be making some fall flavored pancakes.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
I'm gonna say this in this episode. Joy Pancakes is
Yeah, sorry.
what? Dana's here trying to film a story for Instagram, and she's screwing it all up.
All right, go ahead. 1, 2, 3.
So, hey guys, how you doing? So I'm Ben. I'm gonna be the artist for today's Joy Pancakes, and the title is the fall is here, and boy is it. So I'm gonna be making some fall themed ish pancakes for today, and it's gonna be pretty cool.
Wake up.
Yeah, do it. All right. It's my social media quota for the day. Thanks, Dana. All right. Dana said I should enjoy the stream, and I am. That's my intention. So, all right. Fix up my glasses here. Awesome. Glad you're excited. Hey, Maya. Hi, Marcus. So I'm gonna organize my colors here just a bit. They're a bit of a jumbled mess right now, and we'll get started. No dilly dallying. Just down to business. It's business time. That's what time it is, right now. All right. I think we got everything we need here. That's relatively organized. Organized enough for me. So I'm gonna switch over to our overhead here. And off we go. Let's scoot that griddle up just a smidge. Okay. Grab some Q-tips. Fix my mistakes. I'm gonna take off my jacket here. And I'm gonna roll up a sleeve. That's how serious I am. What's up, Lashma? I'm not probably pronouncing that wrong, but that's okay. So I think we're gonna start off with something fairly simple. Let's see here. All right. Time to ignore my phone for the next couple of hours here while I do this. So I'm going to start off with good old-fashioned maple leaf with all of the colorfulness that fall can afford. So here we go. Oh, yeah, I saw that. That was really good. That was Dan. Dan did that one, so I'll give him credit where credit's due. He definitely did a really killer job on that. Venom's always really fun to do because his whole character is just chaos, so you don't have to worry about being exact because there's nothing exact about Venom or the way that he's drawn. We're gonna go. I'm thinking this stream's probably gonna be a couple hours long. I'm scaling back to days. I have a tendency to go for these big, epic, grand pieces, and today I'm gonna just chill a little bit more. So that's why I'm doing this maple leaf. You know, something simple that I can make complicated, versus something something complicated that I got to try to make simple. So I'm gonna try to squeeze in 3 pancakes today. That's the plan. And I think we can do it. Okay, so that's the very beginnings of our leaf there. That's the bones, so to speak. So now we're going to start doing our little offshoots here. Our little, think about it, it's really, leaves are built kind of like the trees that they're on. You got the bigger trunk up the middle, and then you've got your main branches, and then you've got your little branches off to the side. So it's a very similar process. Of course, with the leaf, like especially like this, you have to keeping the symmetry or the pattern. Like it's very easy to make leaves lopsided on accident. Which usually you can compensate for, but I've definitely made a few where I'm just like, ugh, that's not like any leaf I've ever seen. It is maple leaf, Maya. And it's going to be extremely colorful. I need to turn the vibration off on my phone because somebody's having a conversation and it's going to drive me nuts hearing that the whole time. There we go. Put that sucker on silent. If it's important, they'll hop in the chat here and tell me. Or it's really important, they can call me. Like last week when the stream went down, and I didn't realize it until it was already offline because we lost internet. Basic structure of our leaf here. So one thing we use a lot of here is these Q-tips. I should see which camera am I on here that I can. Yeah, these guys go through quite a bit of these. They are infinitely helpful for cleaning up like these little spines here, just a little too thick for a leaf. So I'm just kind of smoothing out the edges of it, and then at the same time making them a little thinner in the process. These really fine lines can be difficult to lay down and even maintain a little bit because but overall it's a really good start. So there's not a whole lot of fixing that has to happen here. It's a pretty solid beginning. All right, I'm happy with that. So now, hey Sasha, how you doing? Actually, I'm gonna come back to that. I'll let those dry out some before I go back to them. So now, see how we want to outline this leaf. It's fall colors. We can get a little creative with it. We can even stretch the limitations of what would be considered a fall color, because this is our interpretation anyways. We get to do whatever we want. So I'm going to start with purple down here, actually, which is definitely not a traditional fall color, I think. the way that I'm going to do this is that's going to work just fine. Okay, so we got that. So I'm going to start with purple and kind of work my way up all the way to yellow. So the very top of my leaf right here is going to be yellow. Yes, kind comments before the spam are always thank gosh for moderators and filters. I know it's weird out there as people got nothing better to do but than to go on other people's streams and say stuff that they wouldn't say in person. Or maybe they would, I don't know. Never want to assume. But you know what happens when you assume, right? Somebody's bound to make a bad joke. Give our assistant Jimmy credit for that one. That's his little quip. I stole that from him, so might as well give him credit where credit's due, right? Okay. A little bit of orange in there. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing every little step of this graduation to the different colors, but keeping them separate, and then I'm going to join the lines in together so that way it gives it a small opportunity for the lines to sort of dry out a little bit so they don't run, that they're solid and stuck in place where they're going to be. It's a little trick I've learned over time. Just kind of work on one section and then go back to it and then just keep doing that. And it works surprisingly well. It's not perfect. There's still a lot of stuff to figure out with this silly medium, but we're getting there. Okay. I'm gonna start connecting these. Extend that point up so we should have a nice defined point on it. Oh, thanks, Razor. It's not a time crunch, and it's, you know, whenever we're doing regular events or a request stream on Sunday, we definitely it's a different vibe where it's like it's all about, you know, we try to get it to as many people as possible, but you know, I'm gonna be on here for probably at least 2 hours, and what's the rush? Like they'll get done when they get done. I'm in no hurry to, you know, after this I go home and I'm off to, I'm not gonna be coming into the studio to make any pancakes tomorrow, so these will be my final pancakes for the week, so let's make them good. Alright. So I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna start working my way from the top to bottom here and just gonna work my way back from that. Also gonna connect these. So that is important. Okay. Now we got that. So now, what I was trying to do earlier on these, trying to give them just a little more depth on the edge. Now that these are kind of dried up. Go back over them as close to the edge as possible. Most of this will actually end up behind the line work I've already laid down, so you won't actually see it. The hair smidgen of it will be visible, and ideally, if I do this correctly, it'll give it just a hint of depth, of the roundness of the spines of the leaf. That's our goal here. This. Just following that as closely as I can. All right, so we got that. Now we're gonna put there. Okay. So now we're gonna figure out the rest of the colors of our leaf here. What we're gonna be filling it with. I think the thing that I want to watch out for is getting close to the colors I've started my line work with, but not matching them completely. So that way there's still some contrast in the line work there, so the edges of the leaf are still really defined. So like we got this yellow up here. So I think I'm going to start with this yellowish green here. And I'm kind of just making up these little zones of changing colors and depth as I go. There's no real, like, it's a fall leaf, so you know it's fairly chaotic as far as the color changes not being uniform in any sort of way. So I don't really have to. My reference is really my reference is really simple. Like this is I just grabbed the most basic leaf, and like I'm not even following the reference to a T, or not even close. Just using it sort of to make sure I keep everything in the right spots. All right, Maya. Sorry you couldn't hang out longer. I know you're in a far different time zone than we are, so I appreciate you showing up at all, because I know it's late or early, depending on your perspective. And so I'm gonna do some indigo down here. Why? Because why not? You're gonna watch, and I'm gonna working my way back and forth from the top to the bottom, back and forth, so that way each time the line work or the detail work on one side has time to set, and sort of the edges at least to dry out a little bit, so that way it doesn't get disturbed too much, unless that's what I want to do, because there's definitely moments where you can actually mix the colors on the griddle while you're making it. So I think I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna add a little bit of extra. Here, so I'm gonna add some plain batter in here, just to kind of just for texture, basically. It's not gonna use a lot. That'll work. Oh wow, 8 a.m. Man, where are you at? We try to keep it pretty zen here, Jake. So as far as blending the fall colors, there's a few different techniques that I'm going to be implementing to do this. One is just keeping the actual work itself, the lines and everything very thin at the edges, which I'm not doing as good of a job on some of this, but because if it's thin enough, it's actually semi-transparent, so whatever you put over the top of it will actually show through the other side just a little bit. And then the other technique that I'm going to be using is actually blending the colors as I go. So you'll see me, like I have this purple down here at the bottom, and then I think we're going to move up to like from there to like a red. And like I'm going to be putting that red inside the red or the purple that I've laid down here, the indigo. And that's actually gonna, they're just gonna literally mix on the griddle, because I have the griddle off here, so there's no temperature, so the batter just sits. When it dries out, it's just drying out at whatever speed the room temperature will allow it to dry out at. So those are the two, and because of that, then you'll get these interesting gradients. And it's a little bit chaotic when you do it that way. There's not as much control over what you're doing, but seeing as it's a fall leaf, that's totally fine. That actually works for what we want. So, and then I can drag this out here. I'm not actually putting more batter down. I'm just dragging it out, so that way it's really thin at the edges. So that way, whatever I put over the top of that will shine through the other side. And that's why you'll see me go back over my line work a lot, and I'll make my lines shorter than I want them to be, so I can go back over them and drag them out like this, so I can make sure the edges of them are really thin. And it's a technique that I discovered on a commercial shoot. We were making pancake arts for a commercial that never aired. Whatever, the product never came out. I mean, it may still someday. It's just, everything's changed. But I inadvertently, because I wanted everything to be pancake colored, so I had like 6 shades of brown. And they also wanted the pancakes insanely small. So I was just really, really like focusing super heavy on trying to make sure that everything was small and detailed enough. And because of that, I inadvertently discovered that, I can get like almost this watercolor-esque effect doing that. And it was really cool to see, and it really made me want to explore that more. And so it's kind of nice. I haven't had a ton of opportunities to do that. This was last October when I figured that out. And oddly enough, doing these streams have allowed me to explore that more, and really not just do it, but actually at this point try to fully understand the process, the mechanism of how it all works, to try to get better at it, to try to do something in a way that is, because pancake art, a lot of it's us trying to sort of copy what other mediums are doing and trying to figure out how to do that in pancakes. And this sort of, it's a unique way of doing something, and it gives it a unique look. You could probably achieve in other mediums, but not with the same. It wouldn't be exactly the same, and that's kind of neat for me to make art in an unusual medium, visual art too, because like we've all seen, we've all seen amazing visual art. Like that's just, amazing art is a dime a dozen now. Like it's, you can throw a rock and hit an amazing artist without much trouble anymore. They're everywhere. So trying to do something unique within visual art, that's the challenge. And whether or not we succeed really isn't important. Just try. 'Cause even if it's not unique, it might be really cool. You still learn stuff, even whenever you know, don't pull it off. As the Lord knows, I mean, I've had plenty of pancakes on these streams too, where I just have not pulled it off. Oh, thanks, Razor. Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Bob Ross is a pretty stellar dude, so that can only be a compliment. All right. So, let's figure out what kind of size I used. Straight orange right there. Gotta keep track of my colors too, because sometimes I get a little lost in what colors I'm using here. So actually, what I'm gonna do is I just go from like oranges to less orange and sort of work my. But I think I'm gonna use this pink here that I was gonna use over there on the red, and use that over here instead. And we'll see how this looks. I think it'll look interesting. I don't, whether that's good or bad and different, who knows. But I kind of want to make the center of it. It's not the technical center of it, but like that's sort of where everything meets. I kind of want to make that dark and have the rest of it, and kind of have it spindle out from there, I guess. I don't know if that would be the right word for it, but to branch out, pun intended. So and there's always a chance with this stuff. One thing I know I have a tendency to do is to try to put so much detail into something. I'll add details I'll add details that aren't necessarily there in the reference I'm using and stuff, and I'm just kind of winging it. I don't always, it's like I think that'll look cool. I don't know. I won't know until I flip it. And so there's always a little bit of a crapshoot. Sometimes it turns out really cool, and you learn something interesting from it, and you're just like, okay, now I know if I do this and this, if I put these colors next to each other, it looks really cool. And sometimes you're just like, oh, that's all right. I know these don't work together. I know like these two colors next to each other, and the amount of contrast is too little or anything like that. And then they end up cooking together, and all of that hard work and detail goes nowhere. It goes, you get both of those. So, okay. Now, all right, yeah, I know what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna use this yellow orange, which I think that's for vermilion. Is that the correct color? I could be incorrect about that. I always forget. I forget the names of my tertiary colors quite often. And so what I'm gonna do, so I'm gonna go sort of around the edges of this pink here with this vermilion, and then these reds over here. Hopefully they blend together really well, and we get some interesting gradients and contrast out of that. And then we're gonna fill it in with yellow. So these little spots that are left here in between. So it's kind of like, oh, tip clogged up. I hate when that happens. There we go. Okay. So now we're just gonna fill this in with the yellow, and then these little spots that I missed, I'm just gonna go over those with yellow. And we'll see how it looks. This might be kind of an interesting, like a kaleidoscope-esque fall leaf, which I think could be pretty darn cool. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn on our griddle here. Just gonna turn it on to like 175. I like to cook these pancakes a little bit slower. Normally we turn it up to about 200, 225, but because of the way I do these, it seems to work better if I cook them low and slow, just like barbecue. And then we're gonna do a nice little outline of plain batter here. Hopefully that doesn't suck up my yellows too much. I think it'll be just fine though. And then just for shins and grins, I'm gonna do a black outline of our plain outline. There we go. And then as that starts to cook, once I start to see some bubbles here, I know the front of it's pretty well cooked at that point, so then I can start putting my backing on. And the whole point of that is to give it just a little more structural integrity, so that way when I flip this bad boy over, it doesn't fall apart on me. That's the goal. So I'm just gonna put a little bead around the edge here. Try not to go off the edge. I want to keep these edges pretty because I think that thick black outline over the plain batter is gonna look pretty cool. So I don't want any of that fall off. But then it'll allow me to put this thicker backing along the edges here. Not make the pancake like bow in the middle, because the middle will be so much thicker than the rest of it. So I'll ensure it doesn't fall apart, and then it looks really cool, and we decide to throw it up on the website. Or if anybody wants any of these, if you like what you see and you want to see, we have these pancakes preserved behind us that we've made. Most of these were made during the streams. You can send an email to hank@pancakes.com and call dibs, and we will preserve it and frame it for you and cast it in resin. It'll last forever. It's just a art piece at that point. Ain't that the truth? Mistakes are delicious, Corey. I agree completely. Our griddle agrees too. It's the whole, it's on the front. Oops, probably can't read that. Bring it down where it's actually in focus. There we go. Our mistake tray says, steaks are delicious. Got a little bit of that overflow there. All right, so we're doing the carving here. So one thing that happens sometimes with this is when you're going under this, you get condensation on your spatula, which is fine, but you got to be careful that you don't, sometimes if you put spatula underneath with a lot of condensation, what'll end up happening is it'll grab onto the pancake, and so then you'll pull back and you'll rip the pancake in half, which I say that as if I've done it before. And if you didn't understand what I meant by that, I meant I've definitely done that before. More than once. More than once on a single stream, actually. A couple streams ago, we had some, I guess the batter I'd used was just it was a little too thin, and so it was not particularly durable, and I had 2 pancakes break on me, and Luckily, I was able to kind of glue them back together with more pancake batter. All right, so I'm gonna switch to the overhead here. All right, so we're gonna flip this and see how we did. Cool. It's a very trippy leaf. Technicolor leaf. Thanks, Mad Wheels. I'm happy with that. It's kind of takes the pressure off a little bit to sort of simplify, to focus on one thing instead of having this giant scene to work on where you've got, you know, 10 super detailed things that you got to focus on in perspective and all this stuff. And it's like, what if you just draw a leaf? And then you can just worry about making the leaf look really freaking cool. And I like doing that. Sometimes those big epic pieces are really good and like they're inspired, and they usually, if I make something like that, there's a reason behind it. Sometimes you just want to draw a freaking leaf and make it look awesome, like, and that's just as valid. And it's a bit more zen. It's you know, I'm not sweating the details when I'm doing that. So I'm gonna grab another griddle here. Got a stack of these in that dark closet back there. So what I tend to do during these streams is I like to work on a cold griddle. So as soon as I'm done with one pancake, I will swap my griddles out and put a cool griddle over there so I don't have to wait or worry about the residual heat screwing up my process or any of that. So there we go. We might put it on the fridge. Who knows? We've question to anyone out there watching. So we've had some kind of wacky merch ideas that we haven't really had time to implement, or, you know, just like everybody's got lots of ideas, but it's like, do you have the time to do them all? But one idea that we've had a while ago was to make really tiny pancake art. Like when I say really tiny, like that big, like the size of like a 50-cent piece. You know, maybe an inch or two across at most, and, you know, as detailed as we can. But then to cast that into resin, but instead of putting it in a frame, put it on a magnet, or put it on a put it in a keychain or something along those lines. And I think it's a cool idea, and like I would definitely put my keys on a pancake art keychain. But I don't know. What do you guys think of that idea? Is that something that you could see yourself or somebody else utilizing? Or even a paperweight? I mean, resin paperweights are as easy as dirt. It just doesn't even matter the shape as long as one of the sides are flat. And just have a pancake floating in the middle. Awesome. That's definitely, I definitely think that's something that we want to do in the future. I know my partner has been playing around with resin a lot, making Hank does a lot of, you know, Hank, our manager, does all these frames and the resin and everything. And my partner has been doing she's been doing a lot of making coasters and all sorts of neat stuff, and just like putting dyes and color and glitter and all this stuff into resin, and it's really neat. And I think I would love for her to put resin in some of her craft pieces and stuff like that, and sell them on the website. It's like a limited run thing. Like here's 10 keychains of whatever we decide to make. All right. So now we're gonna start our next piece, and this next one, you know, the first one's fall leaf, so it's kind of it's a beautiful leaf, but it's a dead leaf. So this one, I guess, technically isn't a fall leaf. tangentially related. It's a nickel word there. But it's sort of it's the opposite. It's the beginning of life. It's the sprouting. So that's what I'm working with here. That's my starting point. So, and again, we have these references, and they're not meant to be. They're not meant to be like a one-to-one. It's not paint by numbers. So, what? Hey, Katie. Good to see you. All right. So, we're going to start this one here. One nice thing about doing these smaller, more focused pieces too is that because it's just the one thing has way more detail in it because I can make it bigger. If I was making this as part of a giant scene, it would just be, the bean sprout would be this little itty bitty thing, but since it's the central focus, I can make it the bean sprout like that, and I can really go to town on the details of it, and that's kind of fun because you get to draw something looking at it closer up than you would normally be looking at it. Like you wouldn't be looking at a bean sprout up this close. Like, I mean, the person who took this photo here, obviously they were way closer. They were using they were doing macro photography. They probably had a macro lens on there to get this kind of a shot. And so that'll be makes it interesting. So there's our little bit, and I'm just gonna clean up some of my sloppy line work here. One thing that happens too is actually with the Q-tips, it's another thing that I'm slowly figuring out with the process of trying to get these interesting gradients without having a bazillion different colors to work with. I'm like kind of smearing, like I can go over it a bunch of times until I get every last little bit of batter up. But I also just leave something on there. Just like leaves a little like thin film of the white batter on there. And then it's that similar thing where I was talking about where you've got this it's semi-transparent. And so whatever you lay over the top of it's going to shine through. And that can actually be pretty helpful. Yeah. And so all part of a process that no one's done it before. So it's like we got to figure it out as we go. Even though we're lifting from traditional art, because this is using pancake batter, but we're painting, like in a nutshell, like that's what we're doing here. If you gave any of us a paintbrush and a canvas, we'd be able to do something very similar to what we're doing here. It might take us a few tries to sort of like wrap our minds around the slight differences, but the core concepts and theories are fairly similar. Okay. So there's that. Yeah, we definitely could put Pokemon Gym Leader badges would be really, I think that would do really well. As I'm sure Sky Kid knows, I'm not too up and up on the Pokemon stuff, but I know enough people who are, and so it's. That would definitely probably be a pretty good idea. I'm gonna play with the color just a little bit. I'm not gonna. I have a tendency to be like, all right, wacky color time. So we're gonna try not to go too nuts here with the. Think of it more as like adding a little flair versus just going hog wild and making it into this psychedelic bean sprout. Okay, got all that. And so, I'm gonna use a little bit of plain batter on this side for the base, because it's not as bright down there because the light's not really hitting it. I don't want to use my white. And then the front of it's a little bit brighter, so we're gonna use yellow there. Okay. And then I'm gonna use my yellow right here to, and I'll just put a few drops of yellow in there because why not? Okay. So we got that. So now we got all this dirt here. So figure out the best way to render this dirt. It's a bunch of browns, so we'll stick to that. We got four browns here. I think what we're gonna do. Actually, I'm gonna use some plain batter here. Got a whole book on Gen 1. All right. I did play Pokemon Go for a little bit, so I know like 4 Pokemon that I kept catching over and over again. I was just doing it because all my friends were doing it. Which is not a bad thing. It's just go hang out somewhere, everybody's playing Pokemon Go, and they're like, hey, let's go walk through the park and hit these gyms. And so it's just like, all right. I can either stay here at the diner or the bar or wherever we are, or I can be by myself, or I can turn on my phone and go for a walk with you guys and catch some fake animals. Alright, so we got that there, and then actually some more. I'm gonna use my lighter brown, my lightest brown to capture these highlights here. Just a handful of really obvious ones, and then I'll kind of work my way just to go around the stalk and stuff. And so now got these spots here where it's almost black, so I'm gonna, and that's just the parts of the dirt where the light's just not really hitting. So I'm gonna kind of draw out those approximate shapes here. use those as a guide to sort of figure out where the rest of my highlights and stuff go. So once you get that, you can sort of start to imagine the shape of the dirt and like kind of think to yourself where all these little bits will be, and like where it's going to be like risen up, because there's a little clump there and you're going to have this little bit of light shining, stuff like that. Didn't fill in on that one. Just gotta drag it through, thin out the edges just a little bit, so that way we can keep those gradients in there that I was talking about. And we're gonna fill in this one. Okay. And then behind here too. And behind here. Okay. There's that. So I'm gonna let that sit for a second. I'm gonna move back up top here and work on these leaves. Which I think we're gonna use sort of this yellow green I've got here for this bottom part of this particular leaf. Kind of meets the base right there. Just comes up like that. It's down just a little bit, but I'm going to save the rest of that for the yellow that I'm going to use for the rest of these outlines here. So, if you notice, I'm kind of going the sort of lineless with this work, and which is definitely not something that's required. Like, you can put down dark black lines and make a really, like a vector image, and that's what we do a lot of the time. It's definitely what we do at like events for most of the pancakes, because that's the quickest way to make sure you get the right kind of contrast. To separate everything, because even if the pieces next, the pieces of the drawing next to each other are the same color, if they're separated by black lines, then they just look like separate things. So it's definitely helpful when you're trying to go fast. In this instance, I'm trying to do something that looks relatively lineless, but the reality is I'm still actually doing lines. If you look, it's like I'm just doing really light lines, and then the sort of trick of that, even though I'm doing these lines, it ends up creating the illusion of it being more lineless, even though I've got these white outlines here, and if I was doing this like a gig pancake, I would just do those in black. All these white outlines would be black, and it's just sort of so much of what pancake art is just implying things, whether or not you're actually doing them. It just you're tricking the mind into thinking it's doing something or seeing something, even if that's not technically what it's seeing. So just making the little spines of the leaf here. Okay. Now I'm going to add, kind of like I did with the last one, the leaf, where I went over the lines, the spine with the lighter Honda. depth. I'm gonna go over these with the yellow just to kind of give it a little more, a little less bright white, and kind of bring it into more of a yellow zone, but still with like a white overtone. So now I got that. So what I'm going to do here is next to these really dark patches here, I'm going to just do a really thin line of the next darkest brown that I have. So this is what I like to call, I call it graduating, where you graduate the color to the next color, where you put a really thin line there. Because a lot of things like humans and human faces, especially if you look at a human face that's like got like a hard key light on it or something on one side, you'll actually see like a line of red down the middle where the light on one side, where the shadow is cast heavy on one side, and that's in the center there. You see this little red line, and that's just because of the way the light is actually like shining through the skin. And like that idea can apply to a lot of things. I don't know if it would necessarily apply to dirt, but I'm going to use it anyways because I think it'll look nice. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to leave it to set for a second and come back to it. And I'm going to do some highlights because the highlights won't actually touch the rest of it. So it's almost just to imply the texture of the dirt itself, and then will be one more layer of brown over that. Somewhat in between this and the one down there. And we'll see how that looks. All right. So now that I got that, so we definitely want to use our greens here. So let's get what greens we have. The green is a little bit lighter than the rest of them. Get these big bottles off to the side. And then along with our greens, let's keep our blues and our yellows handies because those are adjacent colors. So you can use those to trick the eyes in some instances. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to use a little bit of orange here because I've got this purple red here, and so when I was talking about graduating color, I'm actually use this orange here to graduate this, and then I'm going to start using the greens and blues and the yellows to finish it off. So, alright, let this sit for a second. So now we've got our darkest green here, and there's some dark green like right up here. So just kind of fill that in, and then it kind of goes down like that, over here, and then it kind of goes down like that. You just gotta find like these like zones, like see the shapes inside of the shading, and use those as your template. Like don't like when you're working with a reference like this and you're not thinking as hard about the lighting, you can almost turn off that part of your brain and not worry so much about, okay, the light's hitting it like this, so that means it would do this. You can just look at what's already there and be like, okay, I've got the square, I've got this little square here with a little squiggle, and kind of work your way around that instead of trying to imagine the lighting, just see the shadows and the highlights as different shapes. So, and just for a little bit of flair, just along these spines, just gonna add a smidge of blue, just to kind of give it a little bit of character. Alright, so I got those. One thing I definitely want to do is sprouts. Really imply that sort of like divot in the middle there. Alright. So got that. And so now little sliver of my darkest green. So I want to be careful here and not make it super wide. Because most of it's not that dark. And I don't want it to hit the edges, because if I hit the edges with it, then all those really brighter colors, the yellow and the white, it'll create that contrast that I don't want, because I want it to look more like a seamless piece than a line with hard drawings. Or a line with hard drawings, a drawing with hard lines. Okay, so these little guys here have really hard light right up there. Let's highlight. Make sure we get that in there. And I just realized something too. It's like this looks a little odd. It's because I missed the fact that this little sprout right here keeps going, obviously, because they're both the same approximate shape. So this guy right there, that looks better. Okay, so I'll let those sit for a second. I'm gonna fill that in just a smidge. I'm gonna do just a drop of that orange right there, just a little bit. And yellow in there. Okay, well, we got that. Just a little bit of yellow in this dirt. Just a little bit, just little spots over the black back of my plain battery here. Nothing dramatic. And then we can start filling that in with our last shade of brown. Just adding. It's dirt, you really can't have too much detail. Maybe you can, but I haven't found too much detail in dirt yet. We're just gonna fill it into the best of our ability here. All right, so there's that. Now we're pretty close to, we can fill in the rest of our little sprout up top here with this yellowish green here. Let's do this in yellow. Blend them together. Okay. So, all right. See you later, Dana. Dana's taking off. Say bye to Dana, everybody. You can't see her. She's off screen, but believe me, just trust me. All right. So now, gotta make our way over to the green. So, how are we gonna do that? I think what we're gonna do is I'm gonna use this yellow orange here. Gonna go over these little bits here, just to move it a smidge closer to green. And then I'm just going to fill the rest of it in with this yellow green here. I'm going to give it a little touch back here. Of our darker green, and then our other sprout, because this got a shadow from the bean. There. So we got that. And we're just gonna fill it in. And so now that we got that, now here's the part where we can get a little wacky. So since I stuck to pretty much the colors of the plant here, I didn't get too creative with that. But now the background is almost the same color as this plant, but it's a blurred background. It's it's out of focus. It's got a really nice bouquet on it, which is the photographic term for out of focus, or with the stuff that's out of focus in the background, and like how the shape of it and stuff, which related to the shape of the aperture. So, but we can't do that. So we got a contrast. So we've got some options here, and I think what I'm going to do here, I'm going to outline this whole thing in black, and then I'm going to frame off. I'm going to do that first. I'm going to frame this off. Well, I'm going to do the bottom here. This will be interesting. I've never done it quite like this. This will be a new one on me. Because it's still lineless, but I'm putting this thick border around it in black, which could be construed as the line work, but it's obviously not. So I think that'll give it an interesting look. Okay, so there's that. And then I'm gonna take that, bring a line across, and then another line across. And then here, I'm going to bring a line up, straight up, connect them, do the same thing over here, without getting my hand in the batter, try to at least. Try to keep my line as straight as possible. And then I'm going to take the edges where I overshot. I'm going to wipe those clean with a Q-tip. And my finger. Sometimes it's just easier to... I'm going to fill this space in here so it makes it feel like it goes all the way out to the edge. That way it doesn't feel like the dirt in that little spot is disconnected from the rest of the piece. So that would kind of... Okay. So now, let's go nuts. You don't have to worry about what colors existed inside of these dark outlines. We can just... Actually, what I'm going to do is something I rarely do is I'm actually going to turn my griddle on for just a second here. Just to make sure those are set. Alright, that'll be enough. Just to make my griddle warm for half a second here to help dry the edges of those lines so they're solid and they don't move. So, purple's my favorite color, so let's just start with purple. And honestly, I'm just going to make some overlapping shapes. I'm just going to make a bunch of purple shapes, and I'm going to make a bunch, and we'll see how it looks. I have no idea what this is going to look like. I'm really just winging it here. This is not an idea I've had in my head for a while or anything like that. I'm literally just thinking of it now. So we will see how that turns out. Oops, shoot. My hand in batter. It happens sometimes, but it's okay. I don't think that'll make... It'll add character. That's what we'll tell ourselves. Alright. We got that. I'm just gonna use this. I'm gonna use this big bottle of blue over here because that'll help the process go a little faster, I think. I'll fill this corner with the blue. Not running my hand through the batter. Corner straight, symmetrical. I'll come back to that actually. Fix that a little bit here. Easier to fix that with the Q-tips than to try to sit there and go over it with the tip. Good enough. All right, so here's our blue. Let's do yellow. And then we'll start to make them overlap. I think they're just gonna get more abstract, less obvious shapes here. Actually, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to connect these. I'm outlining them, I guess. Let's do that with all of them. Why not? What have we got to lose? Actually, now I'm doing that. Now I kind of want to just do this whole thing and then okay, I'm starting to see something interesting here. I'd say I didn't before, but it feels like something. Because now I've got these little zones here, and I can fill these in with different colors. So you can see I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just totally playing this whole thing by ear. Okay, and then we'll do this corner too. Yeah, so now we just fill each one with a different color. Welcome back, ain't that the truth? I'm just gonna set my lines here real quick, because in this instance, I'm actually trying to make sure that I have like a hard gradient between all these colors here. I don't want them to blend as much. Okay, so now yellow's out, but every other color's in. If I stick to darker colors, haven't used any reds in here. Reds, orange. Do a darker blue. Use our greens even. We can even use a gray, because why not? So let's start here. And I'll try to at least keep them different, like keep the similar colors away from each other as best as I can. So that way it's just contrast on top of contrast on top of contrast. Okay. There's that. So I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. Okay. Alright. So hold that here. This one here. So it doesn't touch the purple anywhere else. that. Set that to the side. Now, let's do a red. We'll do the red here. And then over here. Okay. So our red's out. So let's do an orange now. So we'll do our orange here. Here. Oranges out. So now do our greens. I'm going to do the greens, green kind of far away from the actual plant itself. So I'm going to do it there. And we'll do it here. Okay. We got our darker blue, which I think can go here. So it's far enough away from the other blue. They're pretty similar blues. I don't even think they were made dark. One was made darker on purpose. I think that was just an accident. Okay. So now, I got a gray here, so I'm going to figure out where I want my gray to go. Now I've got this pink here. So the pink can go here. Here. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to separate these into separate halves so I can do a couple different colors in there. And we'll do I want to do a big gray or a little gray. Let's do two big grays here. Do one here. And we'll do one catty corner over here. All right. So now we just got our two little spots to fill up here, and what shall we do them with? I know one of these can be the slightly lighter green that I didn't really use. It's not particularly close to my plant. The other one's right next to the plant, so I don't want to use green there. So what do I have? I've got this yellow orange. I think that's about. Oh wait. I've got. No, I don't want to use white. I'm going to use this yellowish orange here. And that'll be final touch. And then that little spot there. Okay. That's it. So we're going to put our grill about 175. There's a couple spots here where I can see that it got a bit of air. Little hole there. It's not completely filled in, so I'm going to make sure we don't have any devoids. All right. So we got all that. So now we're just going to do our plain batter outline and start. By the time I get this done, it's already started cooking. So by the time I get this outline done, we should be ready to put a hefty backing on it to give it that extra extra bit of structure. And then we'll see how we did. And I got one more piece after this. Start to pick out the thinnest spots here to fill in. The batter that was down the longest tends to be the thinnest. It is bread. We're working with bread here. Uh-oh. Starting to run. See if there's more. Actually, just for the sake of making sure I don't leave any spots uncovered here. Use this yellow here. Alright, and I'll be right back. I'm going to see if there's more batter. And there it is. Just a little bit. That's perfect. Thanks. It feels pretty satisfying too on this end. Alright, give us a little less than half a bottle of plain batter, and that's the last of the batter that we've got this evening, so gotta make it count. Alright, gonna smell that pancake cooking, so start carving up our edges here. Wipe it. And the reason I'm wiping it is just to get that condensation off. Don't want the pancake to stick to the spatula while I'm getting it unstuck from the griddle. That can end tragically. Actually, I felt it get a little stuck there, so gotta be careful. Might need a second one. Might not be quite as cooked as I think it is. And just whenever it flips over here, I'll have just a little bit extra to stitch it all together. This one turns out cool. I definitely want to make sure that because giving them all this extra batter on the back serves two purposes. One, making it more likely easier to flip, so it survives the process of getting flipped. I just lost a little bit of the border there, but also when we freeze dry them, the thicker pancakes tend to do better as far as surviving the freeze drying process, which we can fix some stuff where the pancakes kind of crack and stuff during the freeze drying process, but man, cannot get to the middle of this one. There we go. Just as you saw it budge there, it means it's ready. So I'm gonna switch to our overhead camera. Maybe. Now is it not gonna? It's not gonna cooperate with me now. So now I gotta actually walk over here and hit the button. My keyboard died? No, keyboard didn't die. All right. So here we go. Yeah, that's interesting. Some of the outlines didn't quite show up. Thanks, Sky Kid. I think I am gonna actually. It's interestingly enough, you can make minor corrections to this stuff after the fact. Actually, if you make minor corrections in the correct direction. That yellow definitely ended up cooking into the green more than I expected it to, which definitely happens. So what I'm going to do here is really thin layer right there. And I'm actually going to end up flipping this back over very carefully, mind you, and try to make sure I flip it perfectly flat and let that little section cook there. There we go. You don't want it to slide while you're doing that. Of course, putting little bits that were stuck on there. I don't want those to end up on the pancake. So let that cook for a second, and then we'll flip it back over and see how that looks. All right, so there, I give it a little more definition. Little tricks of the pancake artist. Guess my keyboard decided to stop working. Plate this guy here. Get off of there. And my mouse working? No, this keyboard's completely not working. There's that little bean sprout with a crazy Technicolor background. So just to show everybody, this is what we've done. This is what's happened so far. Alright, we're going to turn that off. And we're going to switch out to our other... Thanks, that's actually the dirt turned out. The bean sprout didn't quite have the definition I expected. The greens kind of cooked together a little more than I thought they would. And like some of the spines and the leaves didn't show up and stuff. They just, the yellows just did not shine through, which is a good thing to know. Definitely learned something there. But the dirt turned out actually better than I thought it would. So that's interesting. I was figuring out how to render dirt, and one of the things that I've been working on is figuring out different techniques to render grass and shrubbery and stuff, because those are things that I wouldn't say I struggle with, but I don't have. It's like a bag of tools or bag of tricks. It's like, okay, so you figure out a few different ways to render grass or whatever it is, clouds, any of those things, and so you've got these standardized ways of doing it that you can use as needed, and then while you're using those standardized ways of doing them, you can kind of mess with them a little bit, tinker around the edges to see where else you can push it to. Whereas right now with grass, I'm sort of at a place where I just kind of wing it, and it usually turns out fine. But it's not. It's not to the point where I feel like I can really like get super creative with it. Okay. So last but not least, so this one will be a little bit more original than the other ones. But if I do a little more, like I say, vectorized or cartoonish, it's a little girl with holding a thing of balloons, sort of just floating away. I think that'd be a good way to end it. And so this will be the last one of the evening here. All right, loosened up here and ready to go. All right, so off to the races. See, one thing I don't want to forget here, since these all got strings, gotta make sure to add the balloons that are like right up front. I need to make sure that I add those strings first, so they actually, and honestly, what I'm gonna do, just thinking about it now, I'm gonna just make some in that way. Can use that, and that'll be where my balloons go. Okay. Here. There's our. I have to fix that. Didn't mean to. Who, biggest pancake art I've made? I mean, darn near the size of the griddle. Is probably the biggest. I mean, I had one. I did shoot the Smash Brothers character that is from Punch Out. I wish I could remember his name. I did one of him, and during a live stream, and it was I had to use 2 spatulas to flip it. And so I took one spatula here and one here and just went like that, and then at the same time flipped it back. And just to make sure it didn't like fold over and try to break on me in the process. I'm just gonna redo that last one there because it's not, the shape of it's not great, so better to just do it right and try to fix what can't be fixed. Or even just leave it out. Actually, it looks fine without it. It doesn't need it. So. All right. So there's that. And so the only thing we're gonna do here is actually, instead of doing the next, we're gonna do like a silhouette. Versus a full, keeping out some of the detail there. Silhouette, I mean, is a little simpler, so it's a little bit faster, but it's also kind of interesting too, because you also really can't, you have to nail the shape of a silhouette if you want it to make any sense at all. So it's a little girl in a dress, just flying off into whatever's out there. All right, you're right, Sky Kid. Puzzles. I've made enough of them that I should know this by now. Thank you for correcting me. Here, I'm gonna clean this up just a little bit here. So really, I don't have to worry about screwing up the insides because it's all gonna be colored in black, so. That's one thing you gotta be careful of whenever you don't have the griddle on at all and the lines don't set. You gotta be careful not to lay down your lines too thick, because then they run and you end up with this problem where what would have been otherwise clean line work ends up losing its shape and definition. Okay. So we'll kind of we're gonna let that sit for a second. And here we go. Okay, there we go. I think that works. Then right here. Okay. She's got, I think her calves are just a little too. She got some swole calves, which nothing wrong with that, but. Okay, so I think we got that. All right, and now we're gonna add some highlights to these balloons because balloons always gotta. These across the top here. And it's a little bit down there, and there. Okay. Those sit for a minute, and we can go on our colors. Oof. Man, Xavier, that would be intense. 1,000-piece pancake puzzle. That's an idea, though. I ain't against it. That would be a challenge and a half. It's a lot of pancakes. If you notice, I've been going for a couple hours here, and I'm on my third one. Obviously, we can go a little faster than that. Be interesting if we could pull it off too. Getting them to stick, like getting the pieces to fit together would be interesting. Because you know, everything's freehand, so keeping sizes uniform could be difficult. So we've done a couple of like animations with pancakes, and like where we've had to like, tape off the griddle and stuff, so we have some sort of grid to measure against. Because otherwise, you're just flying blind. And you're just like, I hope this is the exact same size. And with the puzzle, there's no, you can't fudge with it afterwards, and you know, in editing, it's gotta be right from the get-go. Okay, so now, got that, we're gonna do some clouds. Y'all like clouds? I like clouds. is make sure none of the clouds cross over those white balloon lines because I don't want to lose those in a white cloud. The edges of the clouds are so imperfect. I'm just trying to get some of that in here because these are mostly going to end up being white. Okay, then we can. So I think what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to come back to those clouds. I think we can go ahead and fill in our silhouette here. I think it's pretty low. So come back to our clouds. We should probably fill in our balloons next. That would probably be the next thing to do. Clogged again. Come on, guy. Unclog. Unclog sesame. Okay. So there's a silhouette. Sky's version of cotton candy. I mean, so is it 64 ounces of Sky cotton candy every day? Is that what you're supposed to drink? Ooh, thick water. That stuff's... I've never actually had thick water. I've only seen it. I'm not sure if I want to partake. Obviously, it's for people who have trouble swallowing, so it certainly has a very important purpose. It just seems weird. Okay. Okay, so now we got some balloons to make. So I'm gonna start off with some blue balloons. Just have a couple of those there. Orange balloons here. Do some green balloons. Just do a couple of each color, and then if there's any left, then we'll go back and make some more of the color we didn't do. Or make some more colors we did, make some more colors we already did. Okay, green balloons. Do some purple balloons here. Do some red balloons. Do some pink balloons. Lines here, trying to keep track of it all. And some yellow balloons. So I guess let's make these last three yellow. There's only three left. There's two of all the others. So that seems fair. Okay. So there's all of our balloons colored in. And so now we have the outline of our clouds here in plain batter. Then what I'm going to do here is do the insides with white, which is, so what's the difference? Well, it's our white batter has white food dye in it, whereas plain batter is literally just that, just plain pancake batter. That's why this one's such a bright white. The other one is an off-white, or almost has a little bit like a yellow tint to it. It's more like could be an eggshell even. Okay, there's that. And then when we get down to it, our blue sky, we're gonna have a blue sky. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna work our way towards our blue sky. So we saw we got the red, orange, and yellow here. Then what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna lay this light green I've got here of that, and then our slightly darker green then let's get here and get this slightly darker blue, and I'm going to draw that inside of the green here. Force them to mix together. And then also going to do some really thin little darker blue accents in the sky here. But I gotta make sure they're thin, because honestly you're not gonna see them particularly well. If I do it right, they'll be mostly obscured by the regular pattern. Okay. Now we got all that. So now we're just gonna do the rest of our sky in a just normal blue. And these are the same blue. I just happen to have a big bottle and a little bottle of them. And you notice this piece is actually going a lot faster than the rest of them. Not intentional. That's how it worked out. So sometimes there's been more than one where I've spent over 2 hours on a single piece on the stream, but been working since what time did I come in? 9:30. So it's been non-stop work the whole time. Not complaining, because if we're working, that means people want us to do stuff for them, generally. At least today it was. And that is a good feeling. Holy smokes, come on. There we go. Well, spoke too soon. Alright, this one's just, you know what? I'm just gonna swap these lids here. They're interchangeable. This one's got a much larger aperture on it, and this ain't detail work, so it's not important that I get anything exactly right. So we can go ahead and start cooking this though. 175. Thanks. I wasn't totally sure how I was going to tie it all together either. I'm kind of in one of those kind of like just whatever moods where you're just like, oh, let's try this. Let's see what happens. Which I guess I kind of am more than I'm not, really. A lot of times when I'm doing this stuff, pretty much every stream, I'm just like, let's do this. Let's see what happens. You know, I've been doing this for 5 years, but there's still so much that I don't really, that I've yet to discover or nail down. For as much practice and like refinement as I've done, like I still feel like I've barely scratched the surface. So. Oh yeah, definitely. There is if you go on the website in the store, or just pancakes.com/live, there's a couple items in our store that let you either tip the artist, or if you want to come back for our Sunday stream, you can put in a request and donate to get a guaranteed request on our Sunday stream. Yeah, just pancakes.com/live and just scroll down, right? Scroll down past the stream and you should see it. Just enough batter to cover most of the back. I mean, it's my last pancake, so there's no reason to not go nuts here and just use some of my other colors to fill the rest of this in. Yeah, I'll fix those edges here in a second. I ain't too worried about them. And one of the reasons why I also cook at such a low temperature when I'm doing these is because I put so much fresh batter on the back that I want to make sure that I give it time to actually cook, because there's been plenty of times where I put it at like 225, 250, and then I go to flip it, and you know, it's usually fine, but you know, before all the water cooks out, the batter can be pretty heavy, and I'll flip it over and it'll just, you'll hear it just go plop as the wet side smacks down on the griddle. So we're making it's a little girl holding a thing of balloons, just kind of flying off into the sky. So pancake art, if you're not familiar with the actual medium. So, and actually good timing, because I'm actually just getting ready to start carving this thing off the surface here so we can flip it. This is definitely this is the biggest one of the evening. The other ones were relatively small. I mean, they're still pretty big for pancake art. Oop. Okay, gotta be careful. That's what happens. It get that condensation that builds up from the heat on the, and then it just wants to grab onto that pancake. You just gotta be mindful, because I don't wanna rip my pancake and make puzzles. Tonight's not a night for making puzzles. We're almost there though. Oop. Yeah, it's feeling like it's about to start budging. Yeah, I think we're gonna, come on. I think it's ready, but it's not. There we go. Yep, it's moving. All right, cool. So I'm gonna do this so that way I can, oop, get off of there. That was, all right. Got a little greedy there, but we're fine. Nothing bad happened. That way. I want to do this so I can flip it backwards. All right, we all ready? Oh, it inspired me? Well, it's, 1 second. I'm gonna flip this, then I'll tell you all about it. So, the reason, the way I got into pancake art, I didn't create it. I just kind of, I found it. Thanks. So there, we have the original artist, Dan. I mean, we say original as if he's not still here. Like we have 3 full-time artists now, but he was the one who started it. And I met him in 2014. I filled in on drums in his band, and so because we're both musicians, so we ran in the same circles. We never ran into each other, but I met him that way because I wanted to play a show with his band because I thought they sounded really cool because I hadn't heard their demos. And so I was just like, hey, you guys want to play this show at the Heavy Anchor, which is a venue here in St. Louis? Uh, and, on this night. And he was like, I would love to, but we can't. We don't have a drummer that night. We don't have anybody to fill in. And so in a moment of hubris, I was like, I'm a drummer, kind of. I play drums. I'm a drummer technically, but like in my band, I played guitar and sang. On my recorded music, I play the drums, and then I find people to fill in later. But I was not a live drummer. I'd never, when you're a live drummer, you're the backbone of the band. When you're doing it in the studio, you only got to get it right once. But anyways, he said, yeah, when can you rehearse? That'd be great. So I met him, and he showed me the Pancake art stuff. He showed me a video of him on the Today Show, and which was only 6 months prior to that. He was still working at the diner. It was not a full-time job. I was not interested in even doing it. It was just like, cool, like that's really neat. And you're like internet famous, so that's nice. And then we just played music. But about a year later, we went on tour together, and we did Pancake art and music. And and it went really well. But there was a show in Austin where he couldn't do it because he was coming back to St. Louis to do Comic-Con here. And that was a pretty big deal at the time. Still would be now, but especially then, Pancakes was a lot smaller. And so we didn't have a pancake artist for a show. And he's just like, well, you want to learn how? And I was just like, sure, okay. So like he gave me, oh, that's the wrong camera. He gave me a quick crash. Now it switched again. Jeez Louise. So he gave me a quick crash course in pancake art. And I made a bunch of really terrible pancakes, and then drove to Austin, made a bunch more really terrible pancakes, and that was my beginning. So it wasn't, I don't know if I'd say inspiration. I wasn't inspired to do it. I wasn't particularly interested in doing it, honestly. Sure. If you, I've only put out one. So Dan has, his band was called Psych Squared. Oh, awesome. I'm glad you subscribed. That's really cool. Yeah, thank you. It was a really cool tour. It was, we want to do it again. We haven't gotten to, unfortunately, but someday, because it was a whole lot of fun. And, so Dan's band's called Psych Squared. Well, it was called Psych Squared. They don't exist anymore, but so they're on Spotify, Google Music or YouTube Music now, like all those places. He's put out another album for a board game that he created. That's this whole big media project that he's been trying to get off the ground called Anthromancer. And so there's an album that goes along with the board game and stuff. I know he's kind of like a soft release. I don't know if it's up on Spotify and stuff. And then myself, I've put out one album, and it's my band was called The Uncredibles, and it's up on Spotify and all that stuff. It's just a self-titled album. There's no album title to it, and I've been working on another album for like the last 5 years, which is a whole nother wacky story, because don't be a perfectionist. Realize that it can just be done, and it'll never be perfect. All right, I'm gonna switch to the overhead here, and we can just kind of show off our take from the day here. Yeah, I ain't mad at any of these. I think they're pretty cool. Actually, I think they look cooler on camera. Just looking at the screen now. So. Thanks, I'm really happy with the detail leaf too. So I'm gonna switch over to our wide here so I can step over here and we can say our goodbyes. And so yeah, so thanks for hanging out, and thanks for chatting and being awesome and chill and having a time. We'll be streaming again on Sunday 2 to 4. That's our request stream, so you can hop in there and you can shout out requests in the chat. And our buddy, our Anime STL Jeremy over there in the chat, he keeps a running list of all the requests. And then you also have the opportunity to throw us a little tip, a little donation to get your request bumped to the front of the line. Anything $1 or more. It's it's more of a formality really than anything. Just to it helps us out keeping the lights on here, because the pandemic's hit us just as hard as it hit everybody else. And but anyways, enough about the negative stuff. So Sunday 2 to 4, come hang out, and we'll be making a bunch of pancakes. More like 25 pancakes instead of 3. And then next Monday and Wednesday and Friday, 1 to 3 on Monday and Wednesday, 6 to 8 on Friday. More of the joy of pancakes, more stuff like this where we just make really detailed pancake art and hang out. So yep, there we go. Yeah, I'm glad you could pop in too. So I'm gonna step to the side here and hit the fade to black button since my keyboard's not working, and we'll see you next time.